There is a farmhouse in Holmes County, Ohio, that has never had an air conditioning unit installed. Not in the summer of 2012, when a heat dome sat over the Midwest for 11 straight days, and emergency rooms in 3 surrounding counties reported record admissions for heat exhaustion. Not last August, when the temperature outside hit 97 degrees for a week without breaking. The family that lives there is Amish. They have owned that property for 4 generations. On the hottest afternoon of last summer, the temperature inside their kitchen was 68 degrees. No compressor, no ductwork, no thermostat on the wall. 68 degrees. I stood in that kitchen for 10 minutes before I stopped looking for the vent. There was not one. There was not going to be one. And everything I thought I understood about keeping a house cool in summer started coming apart right there in that room. Before this video is finished, you are going to know exactly how that house stays cool. You are going to know the material the Amish have used for over 2 centuries that costs less than $10 at any hardware store in the country. You are going to know the NASA technology from 1959 that was quietly erased from every residential construction manual in America in 1991. And you are going to know who erased it and exactly why. Whether you are building new or sitting in a house that was built in 1978, every single thing I am about to share applies directly to you. You do not need a contractor. You do not need a permit. You do not need anyone's permission. Let me start with a number. The average American household spent $742 cooling their home last summer. Not heating, not electricity for appliances, not the water heater. $742 just to push heat out of a building that should never have been letting it in. A new central air conditioning system costs between $6,000 and $16,000 to install, depending on the size of the house. You then pay between $160 and $200 every single month to run it from May through September. Over 10 years, that is a minimum of $25,000 for a problem that a $10 bag of powder and a $50 roll of foil solve more permanently and more effectively than any machine ever has. Now here's the part that most people get completely wrong. They assume the heat in their house during summer is coming from the outside air seeping in through walls and windows. That seems logical. It is 95 degrees outside, so naturally the warmth creeps in through every gap and crack. But that is not what the science says. The Department of Energy confirmed this in research conducted across multiple decades. 93% of the heat entering a house through its roof arrives as radiant energy. Not hot air moving through cracks. Not warmth conducted slowly through wooden beams. Radiation. Invisible infrared energy beaming straight down from the sun, absorbed by your dark shingles, and re-emitted directly into the airspace of your attic. On a clear summer afternoon in most parts of this country, the surface of a standard dark asphalt shingle roof reaches 160 degrees Fahrenheit. 160 degrees on the surface above your head. Your attic space fills with air reaching 140 degrees or higher. That superheated air presses down continuously through your ceiling insulation into the rooms where your family lives. Your air conditioner runs hour after hour fighting that heat. It was not designed to win. It was designed to keep running. And the companies that sell it and the companies that sell the fuel to run it understood that from the beginning. The Amish understood something different. They understood it without a thermometer, without a laboratory, without a grant from a government agency. They understood it the way most durable knowledge gets discovered, by watching what worked over generations and refusing to abandon it when someone came along offering an easier but more expensive alternative. Their roofs are not dark. They use metal, they use slate, they use light-colored surfaces chosen specifically to reflect sunlight instead of absorbing it. But they did not stop at the roof surface. For over 200 years, Amish families across Pennsylvania and Ohio have applied lime wash to the exterior surfaces of their buildings. Walls, barns, foundations, outbuildings, and roofs. Lime wash is not a proprietary compound. It is not a patented product. It is not something that any corporation can own or control. It is hydrated lime mixed with water. That is it. A 50-pound bag of Type S hydrated lime costs between $7 and $14 at any hardware store in America. Mixed at a ratio of 1 part lime powder to 2 parts water, it creates a thin white coating that dries onto any masonry, any surface, and reflects sunlight with an efficiency that is genuinely remarkable. The Amish did not need Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory to tell them this worked. But in 1973, researchers there ran an experiment anyway. They took 2 identical flat roof sections, positioned side by side in identical sun exposure. One was left dark. The other they coated with powdered limestone mixed with water, chemically equivalent to what the Amish had been using for generations. The result? The coated roof dropped 42 degrees Fahrenheit at the surface compared to the dark one. The interior air temperature beneath it fell 9 degrees. No electricity, no moving parts, No maintenance contract, just physics and a white surface. What the Amish were doing was not new even in 1973. The practice of applying hydrated lime to exterior surfaces for heat reflection goes back further than most recorded history. The Minoans on the island of Crete were applying it to their buildings 1,500 years before the birth of Christ. That is documented archaeologically. The Egyptians used lime wash on the exterior walls of their homes and temples across the Nile Delta. After a great fire swept through medieval London in 1212, the king at the time ordered every house along the River Thames to be whitewashed within 8 days. Not for aesthetics. Lime is a natural fire retardant. The Persians built elaborate towers they called wind catchers and combined them with white-coated roofs to create passive cooling systems so effective that French military historians drew detailed technical illustrations of them when they arrived in Cairo in 1798. Nearly every house had one. In the American Southwest, Native American women applied fresh mud to adobe rooftops every spring. The same rhythm of seasonal reapplication. The same understanding that a light-colored surface pointed at the sky was the first and most important line of defense against summer heat. These were not isolated discoveries. They were the same answer arrived at independently across dozens of cultures over thousands of years because the physics behind it is absolute and unambiguous. So the question I want you to sit with for a moment is this. Why are American roofs dark? Why, in a country that spends $130 billion a year on heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, does almost every house have a roof designed to absorb as much heat as the sky can deliver? That question sent me looking for answers when I came back from Holmes County. What I found was not a gap in knowledge. It was a gap that someone had carefully manufactured over several decades using money, lobbying, and access to the committees that write the rules. There is an organization called the Asphalt Roofing Manufacturers Association. Their members produce the dark shingles covering your roof right now. And in state after state, this organization has spent significant resources lobbying against legislation that would require or even encourage reflective roofing on residential buildings. In early 2025, a lobbyist connected to the roofing industry worked with a state representative in Tennessee to strip a reflective roofing requirement from a commercial building energy code. The provision was removed. Critics on the record described the outcome as dangerous and deceptive, saying it would lead to higher energy costs and preventable heat-related illness across one of the hottest states east of the Mississippi. The provision was removed anyway because someone who sells dark shingles asked a politician for a favor and the politician complied. Baltimore fought the same battle in 2022. The same association lobbied against a reflective roof ordinance, arguing publicly that dark roofs were actually the more efficient choice even for warm climates. Multiple independent academic studies showed that claim to be false. Baltimore passed the ordinance in 2023. Most cities never even bring it to a vote. Most city councils never hear about it. The companies that manufacture black rubber roofing membranes for commercial flat roofs funded their own research to declare that the benefits of reflective surfaces were inconclusive. They also spread the claim that white roof coatings caused condensation and mold. A major American retail chain tested reflective coatings across more than 24 of their stores in different climate zones. The mold problem never appeared. It was a talking point manufactured to create doubt in the minds of building officials and homeowners, not a fact supported by any credible evidence. And then there are the homeowners associations. Across this country, there are documented HOA covenants with explicit rules banning white or reflective roofs, not regulating them, not requiring approval, banning them outright. In some cases, these rules were written by board members who had no idea where the original language came from. In some cases, the bans were enforced even when the board knew the rule had no legitimate basis. You may be living in a neighborhood right now where a rule exists on paper that prevents you from applying the most effective passive cooling surface ever tested by science. A rule that has never been questioned because nobody knew to question it. A study published in a major scientific journal in 2024 calculated that reflective roofing across London's building stock could have prevented the deaths of more than 200 people during a heat event that struck the city in 2018. 200 people. The material that could have protected them costs less than what most families spend on a single meal out. Now here is exactly what you do if you own a house today. Go to any hardware store in your area. Ask for Type S hydrated lime. It will be on the same shelf as the masonry supplies. Buy as many 50-pound bags as you need. For a standard 1,200 square foot roof, 2 bags will cover it with 2 coats to spare. At home, mix 1 part lime powder with 2 parts water. You are aiming for the consistency of thin skim milk, not paste. If it is too thick, it will not flow evenly. If it is too thin, it will not adhere properly. Stir it thoroughly until no lumps remain. Use a thick nap paint roller or a wide masonry brush. Apply the first coat evenly across the entire roof surface and let it dry completely. Give it a full day of sun exposure, then apply the second coat. For a 1,200 square foot roof, your total material cost is between $14 and $28. 2 coats, 1 Saturday, done. A homeowner in Central Texas documented this exact process on a home improvement forum. Before treatment, he installed a digital thermometer in his attic. On a 96-degree afternoon, his attic measured 147 degrees. After 2 coats of lime wash dried, the same thermometer read 99 degrees on an equally hot day. That is a 48-degree reduction in attic temperature. His electricity costs for that summer dropped by over $1,000 compared to the previous year. His total material cost was $16. Lime does weather over time. Ultraviolet light and rain break it down gradually. Plan to reapply every 2 to 3 years. For less than $30 every couple of years, you are cutting your cooling costs by a quarter or more and protecting the physical structure of your roof at the same time, because lime is naturally antibacterial, antifungal, and a proven fire retardant. The same properties that caused a medieval king to mandate it after a fire destroyed half a city. But the lime is only half of what I want to show you, because what was removed from the building manuals in 1991 was not lime. That knowledge had already been pushed aside long before. What was removed in 1991 was something newer, something that the American space program developed in 1959 for a completely different purpose, and something that an entire generation of American builders never learned existed. In 1959, engineers at NASA were facing a problem that no one had ever solved before. Spacecraft in orbit experienced temperature swings of 500 degrees, negative 250 in shadow, positive 250 in direct sunlight. The materials available at the time were simply destroyed by those extremes. What they developed was thin, metallized foil sheeting, engineered to reflect radiant energy away from whatever it protected. It worked perfectly. The technology saved equipment, and it saved lives. By the early 1960s, a small number of engineers in the building sciences had started asking a question that nobody in the HVAC industry wanted to hear. What would happen if you applied this same principle inside a residential attic? The Department of Energy ran the studies through the 1970s and into the 1980s. The results were consistent and unambiguous. A sheet of reflective foil installed on the underside of roof rafters intercepted infrared radiation before it could heat the air in the attic space. Test homes showed attic temperatures dropping between 25 and 35 degrees. Air conditioning runtime in those homes fell between 38 and 70%. A homeowner in Phoenix installed radiant barrier foil and measured his attic temperature before and after. Before, 141 degrees on a July afternoon. After, 106 degrees on a comparable afternoon. His air conditioner went from running 4.5 hours per day to 1 hour and 50 minutes. His electric bill for July dropped $179 compared to the same month the previous year. His total material cost was $58. The product is still available today. Search for attic foil, low emissivity foil, or perforated radiant barrier foil at any major home improvement retailer. A 500 square foot roll costs between $30 and $60. You staple it to the underside of the roof rafters in your attic, shiny side facing down toward the floor of the attic. Do not lay it flat on top of your existing insulation. That traps moisture and creates problems. You need an air gap between the foil and any surface below it for the reflective mechanism to function. Overlap every seam by at least 2 inches. One person working alone can complete an average size attic in 3 to 4 hours using a staple gun and a utility knife. No contractor, no special training. Now I need to tell you what was actually removed from the building manuals in 1991, because this is the part of the story that explains everything else. The fiberglass insulation already in your attic, the pink rolls or the blown-in material made by the major insulation companies, addresses 2 of the 3 ways heat moves through a building. It addresses conduction, heat moving through physical contact. It addresses convection, heat moving through air currents. But radiant energy, the infrared radiation that accounts for 93% of the heat entering through your roof, passes through fiberglass as though it is not there. Fiberglass does almost nothing to stop it. You have been living in a house where 93% of the actual heat problem was never addressed by the solution you were sold. And the solution that did address it was removed from the training materials that every contractor and architect and builder in America studied after 1991. It was not banned. No regulatory body issued a finding against it. No study disproved its effectiveness. It was simply omitted from the next edition of the major residential construction reference manuals. Builders who were trained after 1991 never learned that radiant barriers existed. An entire generation of construction professionals grew up not knowing the technology was there. The fiberglass insulation market in the United States generates approximately $12 billion per year. The HVAC equipment market generates another $130 billion. A $50 roll of reflective foil that cuts air conditioning runtime by 40% or more was a direct threat to both of those revenue streams. It did not disappear because it failed. It disappeared because it succeeded exactly as well as it was supposed to. There is one more piece of this that changed the way I understood everything about how heat and cooling actually work. Your air conditioner moves heat horizontally. It pulls warm air from inside your house and expels it into the outdoor air through the compressor unit outside. But on a hot day, that outdoor air is already 95 degrees. You are dumping heat into a medium that is almost as hot as the heat you are trying to remove. That is why your compressor runs for hours. That is why your bill climbs every July. The physics of the machine is fighting against itself. A white lime surface does something fundamentally different. It moves heat vertically, straight up into the sky above. NASA calls this mechanism radiative sky cooling. Even on the hottest afternoon of the year, the sky above your roof functions as a heat sink for long-wave infrared radiation. The effective temperature of the upper atmosphere as a heat sink for infrared is somewhere between -50 and -70 degrees Fahrenheit. Your air conditioner is fighting 95-degree outdoor air. Your lime-washed roof is radiating heat into a medium that operates at temperatures approaching the void between stars. In 2021, a materials engineer at Purdue University pushed this principle to its theoretical limit. His team produced a paint formulation that reflects 98.1% of all incoming solar radiation. A third-party laboratory certified it as the most reflective surface ever produced. The number that followed from that certification made a very large industry go very quiet. Covering 1,000 square feet of roof with a coating at this level of reflectivity generates 10 kilowatts of continuous passive cooling. A standard residential central air conditioner operates at 3 to 5 kilowatts. The coating outperforms the machine by a factor of 2 to 3 without drawing a single watt from the power grid. You do not need the laboratory formulation to benefit from this. The underlying principle is identical to what the Amish have been doing for 200 years. The same principle the Minoans applied to their buildings 3,500 years ago. The same principle the Egyptians painted on their temple walls along the Nile. Lime, water, a white surface pointed at the sky. Physics handles the rest. The full combined system is this: lime wash on the exterior surface of your roof to reflect incoming solar radiation and radiate heat upward into the sky. Radiant barrier foil on the underside of your roof rafters to intercept whatever infrared energy passes through the roof before it can heat the air in your attic. Together, these two treatments address close to the full problem. Total combined cost somewhere between $70 and $100. Total time to install both of them, 1 weekend. Total electricity consumed by either of them, 0. Total monthly payment to any utility company for either of them, nothing. I spent 22 years paying air conditioning bills that I did not need to pay. No one told me. Not the contractor who sold me my first HVAC system and shook my hand like he had done me a service. Not the home inspector who walked through my attic and never mentioned what was not there. Not the builder who framed the house and insulated it with fiberglass and considered the job done. The Amish told me, not with words. They told me by living in a cool house in the middle of August with nothing running, nothing humming, nothing pulling power from a grid, and no bill arriving at the end of the month for the right to be comfortable in their own home. The knowledge was not lost. It was set aside, written out of the manual, covered over by industries that collect revenue every single month that you do not know it exists. The lime is on the shelf at the hardware store. The foil is available at any home improvement retailer. The sky above your roof is still operating at 60 below zero for infrared radiation. The only thing that was ever missing was someone willing to say it out loud. Drop your state and your attic temperature in the comments. I want to see what